Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, I'm Joe with Bradford Fencing. We got a chain link gate that I had to come into the shop and build over the weekend. And so I was going to give y'all a look at what that looks like for welding that up and fabricating a chain link double gate. So come join along and check it out. Okay, so it's a little quiet around here. It takes a second. Got these lights come on, but as I mentioned, it's a weekend, but we've got some gates. We got one you can see started here on the welding table, but we've got some gates that are going out on Monday, so we've got to get those made up, and I'm gonna give y'all a walkthrough of the process of making up a chain link gate. Specifically, these are a double swing gate, so this is a 24-foot opening, so both of these gates are going to be 6 foot tall by 12 foot wide. Nope, that direction. 12 foot wide gate, so stay tuned to check that out. Okay, so these gates are going to be, like we mentioned, a double swing gate. This frame is actually already put together, so we've got it all welded up, and Brad and Brandon have these rails already cut and coped, which coped means the cut like this that allows that to be fit up against another round pipe right there, and then a nice smooth weld. So they've got those cut and coped. I'll show you for our coping, we have these different jigs that fit different size pipe that are coping jigs. So like this one is the one we used to clamp on here and mark that pattern or that cope, and then once that's cut out, and you can see that it fits nicely and snug around that round pipe, and then that's what allows us to be able to weld these horizontal rails to our gate uprights, as you can see here. And then I'll show you and demonstrate putting together that second half of the frame. And also we're going to make one modification here. We've got the bulldog hinge set out, but we got a little bit ahead of ourselves on this frame. We've actually got to have a spot down here for the bulldog hinge, which is the hinge that we're using to actually attach to the gate and pivot. So I'm going to add a 3-inch extension right here on the bottom. This is the bottom of the gate, that's the top. So with a residential chain link gate, the hinges typically clamp onto the rail somewhat toward the bottom and the top, but these bulldog hinges are used typically on a commercial swing gate. We use them a ton, but you can see this collar on the outside of the hinge that it actually fits around this gate upright, or the vertical piece, and then that gate vertical piece pivots inside of this collar. So you'll have one up here around the top to support it, but this bottom one has to be positioned to where the gate sits on top of it and it pivots inside. Thus we need a piece 3 inches to stick out below in order to accommodate this bulldog hinge. So we're gonna add that to this one, and then we'll show you how that works on the second one that we put together. And before we get going, I'll mention our welding setup. We're welding galvanized steel here for this gate frame, and this is a MIG welder setup. So we've got a steel wire and a welding gas, a shielding gas that's used with that, and then that wire is fed through this gun, and here's our ground that will clamp to the working surface, and then that wire will be heated up and will cause that weld to put these pieces of metal together. So here I'm going to measure and cut our 3-inch extension that we're going to weld onto the bottom of that gate for the bulldog hinge and get that prepped for welding that on. Here I'm going to prep my piece that we're going to weld on by beveling and Okay, so now I've got our peg welded on there and grounded down so that bulldog hinge will fit on there smoothly and turn like it's supposed to. I'll flip this over once we flip it and are working on the fabric and weld that other side and ground it. But there we are, got that ready for our bulldog hinges, and this gate's ready for putting our fabric on and finishing up, and then we'll put together this one. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up and move it off the table for now so that we can do our welding on our second gate. And just to demonstrate what I'm talking about, how that works is that hinge will slide onto there, and then it just pivots inside, or the gate pivots inside of the collar of the bulldog hinge. And looking at this is a little bit long, so I don't want this to go below my hinge. I want it to be exactly this same width or length. So I'm gonna mark this and cut it off so it's not sticking out below our hinge once we put it in place. Okay, we got that one welded up, and we're going to take both these outside and prep them and prime and paint our weld spots, and then they'll be ready to put the chain link fabric on from there. Okay, so a little bit closer look at getting all this welded up. You can see I went ahead and cut that upright to have the 3-inch peg for that bulldog hinge like we looked at on the other one. So this all welded up. And as I was doing this, I was checking diagonals to make sure we kept this frame squared. And then I don't know if you noticed, but I would jump around to side to side in different spots to weld so that I didn't heat one side up too much and bow or distort the frame in one way. So jumping around and alternating spots helps to not overheat a spot, because that heat will pull and draw the steel and can distort that frame and pull it out of square. So this one's ready. We'll clean up these, we'll prime and paint this with a galvanized to match this frame, and then we'll put the chain link fabric onto both these frames. Okay, so I got one of the frames set up on our paint stands out here, and I've got those weld joints painted with some galvanized paint to match the galvanized pipe, and let that dry and do our other frame, and then we'll be ready to put fabric on. Okay, so we need our hardware and fabric to put on this gate, so let's go get that stuff together. So this gate is a 6 foot tall, 11 gauge galvanized, so I'm gonna find the correct 6 foot 11 gauge fabric here. We need tension bars for each side, so we're gonna get those. So we're gonna need we need 4 6 foot tension bars, which here's some right here. We'll open these up, get these out. So we need our tension bars, we need tension bands that will fit our frame, which is an 1 5/8" frame. So we'll go get 1 5/8" tension bands. Get our fabric while we're out here. Those tension bands are inside. And we'll be all set. Let me grab this fabric and we'll get back inside and get all prepped and ready to go. So just checking our fabric. This roll right here is 6 foot and it is the correct gauge that we need. So we're gonna cut a couple pieces off of this to use for our gates. Okay, I've got 2 pieces ready for each side of our gate. I cut them pretty close to length, but leave a little bit extra that once we start one side and pull it tight, we'll trim off. So now we'll just go grab our tension bands inside and get ready to go. All right, we got our first frame laid out on the table, and we're gonna this is gonna be the face of the gate, so the chain link will go on top here. But you need to make sure you orient your bottom pegs correctly. So got to make note that, so this peg has to go on the bottom hinge side of your gate. So if we put fabric on like this is going to be our rightmost gate if you're looking at the gate from the front. So whenever we do the other one, we need to make sure that we got it oriented to be the leftmost gate, to where that bottom peg is on the bottom left side of the gate when we put our fabric. So first thing we'll do is we got to start on one side and lay out our tension bands, which will hold our tension bar, which our tension bar holds the fabric. So this is a 6 foot gate, so there'll be 5 tension bands on each side, and the rule of thumb is whatever the height is minus 1 is how many tension bands that you need here. So with this being 6, we're gonna have 5, and see how this is offset a little bit. This offset goes up toward the fabric side. So we'll just go ahead and pop these on, and we can still slide and maneuver them where we want them to be. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this will be our starting point. We'll go ahead and get our tension bar and fabric started, and then pull down to the other end. So these are our bolts. It's 1 1/4", 5/16" 1 1/4" bolt, and a nut that will go into those tension bands that we just set around that tension bar to hold the fabric. As you can see, ran this bar through the end of the chain link, and we have these bands around this bar over the wire bolted to hold it in place along here. And we've got our chain link even on each end here, so this is all ready. Now I'm gonna roll this out, pull it. I'll have to pull it tight and see where I need to trim the chain link, and then we'll do this same thing on the other end. Once I cut it to fit, we'll pull this tight and then run our bar through and put our bands on and bolts on, and then be ready to tighten these up. Then the last thing we'll do is we'll take our wire ties every 16 inches or so and tie this fabric to the top, middle, and bottom rail. Okay, so I was able to start it with just hand tightening it. And this longer gate is a little bit easier to hand tighten it. Sometimes on shorter spans, it's hard to get it full tight like you need to. But this, I'm going to use this to clamp onto the end and help pull it tight to be able to put my nut through. Okay, so that's all in place. And I've got these bands on, tighten them. This is our top. This is our bottom. This is our hinge side with the peg for our bulldog hinges. And got the same down here with our bands and all tightened up. So I'll set this up and either lean it up here against the table or take it outside and put my wire ties on to tie all this to the frame. I say that I'm gonna do the bottom and the top as it's sitting here and just go along each side and put my ties. Okay, I got the top and the bottom tied, but I stood it up off the table so that I could get to the back side of it and put the ties. So I just got it on the ties on the middle rail. So I'm gonna finish that middle rail ties, and then that gate is all complete. And then all I'll be left to do is the one over here sitting to our left, get the fabric on it. All right guys, thanks for joining me. We got both the gates all made up and ties on, everything all ready to go out to be installed. It got a little dark on me, but all ready, and that's a wrap. So I hope that was helpful and enjoyed getting to see the process of building a chain link swing gate. So make sure and like this video, that helps us out a ton, and subscribe to the channel for more gates just like this.